Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Over the weekend, we slept over a very important story. That was the assassination of a very important nuclear scientist in Tehran, an Iranian nuclear scientist named Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Now, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was assassinated in a particularly dramatic manner because he was under protection. He had a security detail with him. So the usual thing that, say, the Israeli intelligence has used in the past for assassinations, targeted assassinations in Iran, which is two people on a motorcycle coming and spraying bullets at a car, that couldn't be done in this case because he had a security detail. So it does look like there was a truck that was parked in sort of from where this car was passing, and that truck had an explosive go off, so the car and the security detail stopped, and that's when from that truck a bunch of people came out and they fired, killing an unspecified number of people, but definitely Professor Fakhrizadeh. Now, Professor Fakhrizadeh was a nuclear scientist, Iran's preeminent, topmost nuclear scientist. That's one. He was also carrying the rank of a brigadier in IRGC, which is Iranian Revolutionary Guards Council, which is the most powerful body of the Iranian armed forces, come intelligence, come dirty tricks, come everything. So he had the rank of a brigadier there. So he was killed, and that immediately led to a lot of commotion. Now, when you see that commotion and when you hear that commotion, then that is where you might find a great deal of clutter, because Iran was angry. They had to show anger. Their parliament empowered the government to do anything and effectively said carry out retaliatory attacks in Israel, short of specifically recommending carrying out targeted assassinations in Israel. But on the other hand, Iran's president, that is Hassan Rouhani, his statements were very guarded and very smart. And that is where I say that if you look at all this with naked eye, you will see a lot of clutter. But when you lift the layers, it isn't so much clutter, it's quite logical. So his statements, he says, the enemies are experiencing stressful weeks. Now, he's not saying enemies are experiencing stressful weeks because he or Iran has done something to the enemies. So what is he referring to? Then read him further. He says, they are mindful that the global situation is changing and they are trying to make the most of these days to create unstable conditions in the region. Bullseye. So one thing the Iranians are not is smart diplomats. They are smart diplomats and they are smart politicians. So they know what they are talking about. So what he's saying is that this is something that, say, Israel or the outgoing American administration, Trump administration, etc., are now doing to leave a scorched earth for Joe Biden as he takes over on 20th of January. Joe Biden, as we know, is committed to return to what is called as JCPOA. That is the agreement that the Americans and the Iranians signed in Obama's times to contain Iran's nuclear program in return for a graduated lifting of sanctions. JCPOA stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan for Action. You know, people have to invent acronyms. I would really recommend to all of them who want an acronym to create an acronym to consult our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Nobody is better at him than this. So JCPOA mein koi tuk nahi banti hai. There's nothing rhymes there, but that is what it's called. Now, this scientist was an important one. He was important enough for his death or for his assassination to be seen as a big setback for Iran. Setback symbolically, setback also in terms of just the humiliation of their formidable security and intelligence agencies. It's also come in a series of targeted assassinations that Israel has been able to carry out. Between 2010 and 12, Israel carried out the assassinations of about 6 scientists, nuclear scientists from Iran. Then later again under Obama administration, there were 4 more. Some of those were maybe carried out by the Americans or they were joint American-Israeli efforts, as this also looks like. But he was very important also in the big picture, because when IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, gave its report on Iranian nuclear program, they also named him. He was the only scientist they named as the somebody who was sitting on top of the hub of nuclear network of scientists who were working on the weapon. He was the only one named. Only earlier this year, on 7th of August, one more very important assassination was carried out. Again, it seems by Israeli intelligence in Tehran, 7th of August. This is a story that the New York Times broke only a couple of weeks back. And although the Iranians have tried to deny it, nobody is buying that denial. Again, they're trying to deny it because it's too embarrassing for them to admit this for many reasons, which I will explain. So this was the assassination of Abdullah Ahmad Abdullah. Now, you may not have, even if you follow the history of Al-Qaeda, that name may not ring a bell. But if I said Abu Muhammad al-Masri, that might ring a bell, because his original name was Abdullah Ahmad Abdullah, but he was also known as, or his nom de guerre, or his name for fighting was Abu Muhammad al-Masri. Abu Muhammad al-Masri was effectively the number 2 in Al-Qaeda. Now, operationally, he was also supposedly involved in several attacks on US establishments, including embassies in Africa, which caused the death of 224 people. So he and his daughter were going for a walk in Tehran, and two gentlemen or two men came on a motorcycle and sprayed them with bullets. So both Abu Muhammad al-Masri and his daughter was killed on 7th of August. The attacks that he is supposed to have carried out were in Kenya and Tanzania. Now, this death had been hidden. Iranians would not talk about it for two reasons. One, family shame, to admit that Israeli intelligence could come and assassinate somebody who was your valuable asset and who you were looking after. Second, a political embarrassment, and also in a sense in the sort of religious world or sectarian world, a little awkward thing to admit that you as a Shia nation and as a Shia culture was also harboring a leader, top leader of Al-Qaeda, which is a Sunni organization. But anybody who's followed the history of Al-Qaeda and what's happened between Al-Qaeda and other countries in the Middle East, in fact, even until parts of Al-Qaeda morphed into ISIS in Baghdad, that's how Baghdadi came in, the infamous ISIS chief. Until that happened, Iran had worked very closely with Al-Qaeda. In fact, if you read the book called The Exile, and you will see the jacket on the screen, so you see the author's name, I don't have to repeat those, that tells you in great detail how all the Al-Qaeda people, including members of Osama bin Laden's extended family, as they escaped from Afghanistan and Pakistan, they were given refuge in a compound in Iran. They were looked after. Also, then their passage from Iran to Iraq was facilitated, and it is those that then morphed into ISIS. So that is an old connection. Obviously, Iran does not want to admit to it. So Masri was killed on 7th of August. So after that, this is one more targeted assassination, in this case of a highly protected person. Now this comes about a year after the assassination by the Americans of Qasem Soleimani, the big shot of IRGC. So it does look like Israelis and Americans together, irrespective of who's in front on either occasion, they've been able to get past Iranian security and intelligence to kill two very senior officers or functionaries of IRGC, Soleimani and now Fakhrizadeh. That is a humiliation. That's also demoralizing. Also in the middle, they also assassinated Masri, who was their great Al-Qaeda asset, because what was he doing in Iran, in Tehran, unless he was an asset for the Iranians? They would have turned him over to the Americans anytime, or maybe sent him to Qatar, because Qatar is the other place where a lot of these people, particularly Osama bin Laden's family, have found refuge. Now, to understand what has happened, and to lift the layers from this, I will take you back to the statement that Hassan Rouhani made. He said they are mindful that the global situation is changing and are trying to make the most of these days to create unstable conditions in the region. There are two implications here. One, that he's telling you global situation is changing in the sense that Trump has lost, he's going out, and Biden is coming in. And Biden administration will have a different view on Iran, and I will explain to you how. That is one. The other thing implicit in his statement is that he's saying that this action seems to have been carried out to provoke us into carrying out a precipitate action to create scorched earth, whereby then Biden comes in 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now. He's not able to change this policy substantively because he then has to further look at retaliation for any retaliation that we now carry out. So it becomes a retaliatory cycle. So he has made a very clever statement. Now we've seen some very interesting responses from Biden's people. Now John Brennan is an old Democratic Party security czar. He served as CIA chief under Obama. Before that, he served as the head of Homeland Security under Obama. So he was the first to react very angrily. In fact, uncharacteristically so, given the fact that the political ecosystem that he's a part of is now coming into power. And anything he says will be seen as the view of the new administration. So he said, he called it a criminal, you will see his tweet on my screen. He called it a criminal act, highly reckless, and he said this might draw a nasty retaliation which will then make diplomacy, etc. difficult. So while he said so, then Ben Rhodes, who was Obama's deputy NSA, he said this is an outrageous action aimed at undermining diplomacy between Biden administration and Iran. So they both saw it, in fact, with the same eyes that Hassan Rouhani did. I'm saying it without loading it with any motives or anything. Now, this is quite evident that Donald Trump is doing whatever possible to scorch the earth before Biden comes in, because he knows that all his efforts to have the election overturned have now failed. You've also begun to see it in his words a little bit. Okay, I lost the match, but I was cheated out of it. Stuff like that. So 2 weeks back, and American media is reporting it quite credibly, that he had called his advisors and consulted them on whether it was possible for him to order large-scale American military strikes over Iranian nuclear installations. So obviously, he wants to start a big panga with Iran before giving up power, so that he can tell Biden, now you samhalo this, right? I have left this mess for you. You deal with this. So the new person who comes in then immediately has a crisis to deal with. But American system institutionally is strong enough. And although the president there has powers, full powers until the afternoon of 20th of January, his advisors did not let him push them into that precipitate action. Now, it is generally believed that Biden's new Secretary of State, that is Antony Blinken, he's a supporter of the Iran deal that Obama had signed. Now, if you look at that deal, JCPOA, it was signed by Obama. Obama had really pushed for it against great opposition within his system, his security system. He had gone out on a limb. In fact, Europeans had supported him. Europeans have always been soft on Iran. Even now, EU has condemned the assassination of Fakhrizadeh. But just think, that deal had become operational on 16th of January 2016. That was less than 96 hours before Obama ceased to be president and Trump became president. So you could say that that deal was dead on arrival, or as we like to say in Indian journalism, declared brought dead in hospital, bad English. But that deal was dead on arrival because Trump had already taken a position, which was the position of the American right, that Iran is the great Satan also, and no deal with Iran is a possibility. Even now, once these tweets in protest came out of John Brennan and Ben Rhodes, there was an immediate pushback from Ted Cruz, who's a ranking senior Republican leader, who said that what is going on? are you speaking for the Iranians or something like that? And there was a little tic-tac between him and Brennan, but also Ian Bremmer, and you will see his tweets, who is a well-known policy expert in America. He reminded John Brennan that you are saying this, but remember, 4 Iranian nuclear scientists, civilian nuclear scientists, is important. Civilian nuclear scientists were assassinated when you were in Obama administrations. Although those assassinations were not carried out when Brennan was CIA chief, but he was in Obama administration and he was the Homeland Security chief. So what is the nuance in Ian Bremmer reminding former CIA chief John Brennan that 4 civilian nuclear scientists were killed in Iran, assassinated in Iran under Obama administration's watch? It is simply to underline the fact that those 4 were civilians. So if killing this man, Fakhrizadeh, is criminal, that was doubly criminal, because Fakhrizadeh is at least a serving brigadier and to that extent a legitimate military target. And lots of other drone activity had carried on. In fact, under Obama administration, 10 times more drone attacks were carried out than during the previous Bush administration. Although Bush was a Republican, Obama was supposedly a liberal. The exact number of drone attacks, in fact, in Bush administration's 2 terms, 57, in Obama's 2 terms, 563. So when we say 10 times, it is 10 times. In fact, Obama in his very first year carried out more drone attacks than Bush had carried out in both his terms. So this is a factor to which we will return in just 2 minutes. Now, we know that a Biden administration is now coming in. We also know that a Biden administration will reverse American foreign policy in many areas simply because Trump had had made radical departures from the established American foreign policy across the world. He may not have delivered that much substantively, but he had reversed that policy. So you can imagine Biden changing many things. So every part of the world is now expecting changes in US policies that will impact it, including India and the subcontinent, China, Indian Ocean, Indo-Pacific, everywhere. But no part will be affected by this change as much as the Middle East, for the simple reason that America and Israel, they have so much fish to fry all over the seas of the Middle East, and also they control so many strings there. If you look at the map, you will know what I'm talking about. And just go north to south or any sequence that you wish. But let's start at north. Turkey, a NATO ally, but estranged. Now, Turkey would think that they got away with a bit under Trump, they will not under Biden. So you can see that Turkey is already making amends, some amends in its relationship with Europe, and will make overtures to America as well. This happens when France is getting angrier and angrier with Turkey, and Greece is demanding that it be sold F-35s by the Americans. So there is Turkey in the north. Then you look around and go south. You have Syria in a complete mess. In a way, no man's land, but Assad is the front runner. So let us see what is the new administration's approach to Assad. Russia is caught up in both Syria and Libya. Turkey is caught up in both Syria and Libya. Once again, will Biden be as indifferent to what's going on there as Trump was? We don't know, and chances are that he won't be. So those places will also change. Then you go further south from Syria, you have Israel. Israel has the biggest concern about the change in America because Trump had been a completely unquestioning ally of Benjamin Netanyahu, which Biden will not be. Biden, if anything, was critical of Trump shifting the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. You know the implications of that, because Jerusalem was seen to be a disputed territory, and a lot of countries in the world have not as yet accepted Israel's ownership of Jerusalem, so they don't have their embassies in Jerusalem. America moving it there meant a signal that America had accepted it. So Biden and his people were critical of this, but now they've made it clear that they are not going to shift back the embassy. But they will not cut the same amount of slack to Netanyahu as, say, Trump had done. So Netanyahu has great cause for concern, and that's what Hassan Rouhani is referring to. I told you I'll come back to it. Hassan Rouhani is suggesting or insinuating that Netanyahu is in cahoots with Trump administration to create a situation now whereby, by provoking us, he draws a response from us, maybe against Israel or maybe against American interests, to that, which is so significant that when Biden comes in, he's not left the policy wiggle room to make some changes in his Iran policy, because Biden is committed to resuming negotiations with Iran and going back to JCPOA. Now you go further south from Israel, you have Jordan, always insecure because we know where Jordan belongs strategically, but Jordan has many vulnerabilities around it. It's weaker than everybody around it, including the population of Palestinians within it. Then you have the Saudis and the other Gulf Arab nations who have many paranoias, but their biggest paranoia is Iran, because Iran is also ideologically a rival. Iran is a Shia Muslim power. Saudis and Arab countries around them are Sunni Muslim powers, but Saudi Arabia also has a Shia population. Then you have more complex countries like Egypt, a friend of America but a messed up country. Iraq, I mean, you can say messed up in all capitals, because as we have explained to you in the past, Iraq is a country with a large Shia majority that was always ruled by Sunni dictators. Saddam was Sunni, and so were his people and key people in the army. And when Americans brought in democracy into Iraq, democracy brings majority rule. So Shias won the power in Iraq. These Sunnis who had all the power earlier felt alienated, and many of them, including officers in the Iraqi army, former army, then joined ISIS, and that's how Mosul became the capital of ISIS, because they took their tanks, artillery, all kinds of stuff with them. It became a kind of a Sunni payback to the Americans and the new elected Shia leaders. In fact, I am fresh from having watched this wonderful documentary called Mosul on Netflix. If you have the time, please watch it. It's less than 2 hours. It'll teach you a lot about the politics of the Middle East. It's worth spending some time on it. Nevertheless, so Iraq has those issues. Iraq is an American island in a way. At least America has a foothold there. America has soldiers there. But Iraq is under heavy Iranian influence because it is a Shia majority country and with a Shia dominated government. Then you come to Iran. For Iran now, it's a sigh of relief that Biden's coming in. So maybe some respite will be available. Maybe talks will resume again. And maybe this total enmity will be calmed down. And also maybe Israelis will be restrained now. And if Iranian expectations turn out right, then it has many other implications, including for us in India. Because remember, our own very nuanced relationship with Iran, which is economic, political, spiritual in a way, and also strategic. That's all been held to ransom by Trump's withdrawal from JCPOA and Trump's firm enforcement of sanctions on Iran. So if Biden again resumes negotiations with Iran, goes back to JCPOA, then all the issues like Chabahar, India buying Iranian oil, etc., those will go away, and strategic situation for India also around Afghanistan, also around Pakistan, will then, south of Afghanistan, will then ease up greatly. So remember, less than 2 months from now, there will be a Biden administration. The whole world will change, but no part of the world will change as much as the Middle East. That's why preparation for that is now beginning, and that's why people are making their moves in that chessboard. some of those moves can also be these assassinations. So this assassination is not just an isolated event or just an act of revenge. This is a political move on this really deadly global strategic chessboard.